Did Vigano actually show up for his excommunication trial yesterday? Stick around to find out. Wow, the story with Archbishop Vigano is getting more and more interesting as the hours go by. So much information being thrown out at us. It's a little odd, however, that Vigano himself hasn't come out and just kind of told us how things have gone. Make of that whatever you will, but maybe he'll come out with something soon. But we saw reports yesterday that he has to face this excommunication trial held yesterday. He's known about it for a while, but he only tells us about it yesterday. So the world only found out then. So we find out, hey, he's got this excommunication trial because he's a schismatic. He says Pope Francis isn't the Pope. So he's been in schism for quite a while now. And the church is basically just going through this trial and making it official. So they summon him to Rome to present himself, to review the evidence against him, and, issue a response. Of course, there's nothing that he can contest with the evidence against him because it's a clear-cut case. He's very open and explicit about his position of not being in communion with Pope Francis and not even recognizing that Pope Francis is the Pope. And in fact, again, yesterday, he just doubled down with that narrative. So there's nothing to inspect here. But we saw a report saying that Vigano actually showed up to his trial, and it was actually kind of a detailed description. Look at this here. This is from America Magazine, who yesterday reported, America has learned that Archbishop Vigano presented himself this afternoon, June 20th, and deposited his written defense. So not just, hey, we're reporting that he showed up, but he also deposited a defense. So kind of specific here, right? Which was subsequently published in the blog of a supporter of his. Vigano, in a 3-page defense statement, said, I consider the charges made against me a motive of honor. And that's the material that we read on his blog yesterday. So very, very detailed. So not only did he show up, but he submitted a written defense. However, America Magazine is now saying this, correction. Archbishop Vigano did not present himself to the Vatican court on June 20th, as this report initially stated. Oh, okay. Although that report was a little specific. So my question is, how did y'all drop the ball on this one? Because it's not like you just said, oh, he showed up, but then you say he didn't show up. You said he showed up and deposited a response. Like, that's kind of specific. And then you come back and say he didn't. Okay, look, mistakes happen. I get it. Although now if you tell me the sky is blue, I have to question literally whether the sky is blue from now on, moving forward with anything that you say about this kind of stuff. I mean, I'm not even addressing the problems with some of their commentary and theology. I'm just talking about the reports now. Wow, you got that one really wrong, and that's a pretty big thing to be wrong about. Okay, though, overall points, however, about him being a schismatic and excommunicated still remain, but this is saying he did not show up. So unless somebody has evidence that he did show up, I'm going to have to go then with the view that he didn't, because it doesn't seem that anybody who says he has showed up have anything other than the America report, and America has just withdrawn that claim. So, but I have to say this, to be honest, I kind of had a little bit of respect for Vigano when I thought that he did show up. I thought, oh, that's manly of him. He's not a coward. He actually goes and shows up, even though it's really inconsistent with a few points, as I've pointed out. At least, he goes like a man and defends himself. But yeah, he didn't. do that, evidently. So I have even less respect for him than I did before, which was pretty low, by the way. So it's even worse now. In some other news, however, it was just also brought to my attention. In addition to that, it was also brought to my attention that if you go to Vigano's Wikipedia page, let me share my screen. Go to Wikipedia and type in Carlo Maria Vigano. Pope splainers, y'all will be pleased. We are changing the narrative, and we're changing it to the truth. The narrative so far has been a lie. We're changing the narrative to the truth, and here's evidence of that. The very first citation, the very first reference that they offer on his Wikipedia page is this. Vigano himself has been accused of covering for McCarrick and shifting the blame to Pope Francis. Does that sound familiar? It should, because I'm the one who put forward that view based on the evidence from the Vatican report released in 2020. You heard that right, 4 years ago. This material has been out for 4 years, and nobody caught it in 4 years. You need some YouTuber like me to go and read the report and catch this stuff. I don't know what that means, but whatever. All right, so I addressed this in a very lengthy video, about 3.5 hours going through that report in detail, showing that it really looks like, and there's a lot of evidence here, that Vigano is partly complicit in a lack of discipline from McCarrick and has some culpability here, didn't investigate some credible accusations against McCarrick, contrary to what the Vatican told him to do in 2012. Like, this is a big deal. We need to point to this. I don't know why the secular news isn't all over this. I mean, you would think it'd be headlines. Former nuncio didn't follow up on credible accusations against accused cardinal. Like, why isn't that all over the news, Catholic and secular news? I don't know. But instead, they continue to spin it and push the fake narrative that Pope Francis covered for McCarrick, when in fact, it seems like maybe the guy who accused Pope Francis of doing that turns out actually looks like he was the one kind of doing that, and then shifted the blame onto Pope Francis when he knew this information was about to come out. Well, anyways, they say covering for McCarrick and shifting the blame to Pope Francis. So you go to it, you click on it, right? The very first reference, and lo and behold, what it is. Ya boy Michael Lofton. Uncovering the real story, Archbishop Vigano and Cardinal McCarrick. You go to it, and again, it's ya boy Lofton. So that's kind of cool, right? I mean, hey, that shows that we're making an impact. We're starting to bring the truth before people, and it's becoming visible. A lot of people, for better or worse, read Wikipedia. Believe me, I know. Sometimes Wikipedia can be bad, but then again, sometimes it actually can be a little helpful, because sometimes it will point you to a source and you could go and check it out. And so it could be a helpful tool, take it with a grain of salt. But a lot of people read Wikipedia. And now the very first thing they're going to read about Vigano is that actually there's some evidence that this guy spun the information out there and tried to blame Pope Francis for what it appears he in part is responsible for. And you can't argue with the facts that I've presented in that report, because it gives all of the receipts, and Vigano's never interacted with any of it. But you know what? We're going to force him to. And one way or another, he's going to have to respond. So far, he's just continued to say, oh, this was just a smear campaign against me kind of stuff, and has never addressed the specific details against him. Well, you know what? That isn't going to slide. I'm going to keep putting pressure on him until he either admits the truth or shows us, hey, you know what? I actually do have some receipts. I did follow up on this, and here's some evidence for it and stuff like that. Defend yourself. Show us why this stuff isn't true about you, because it's really detailed, it's really specific, and there's a lot of witnesses and a lot of people involved here and a lot of evidence. So you're going to have to do a lot of splaining to do. Vigano is going to have to do a lot of Vigano splaining. And you know what? The Vigano splainers haven't done any splaining here. The day this report was released, they ignored it. They just said, "Oh, it's a smear campaign against him," and ignored all the evidence against him and contradicting his claim about Pope Francis. Ignored it all. That narrative is starting to be chipped away. Praise God. We're going to continue at it. Going to continue to put the truth forward. And I'll point out, a lot of people are saying that Vigano is being excommunicated not for schism, but because he's a whistleblower. And they base that on Vigano's claim that it was Pope Francis who sheltered McCarrick. When in reality, that narrative turned out to be false, and the evidence shows the exact opposite. It was Pope Francis who actually disciplined McCarrick, and it was Vigano who didn't follow up with credible accusations, and therefore the Holy See did not even know about certain aspects about McCarrick until much later. So that's why it took so long for the Vatican to discipline him. They would have done it earlier if they had been informed by Vigano if he had done his job, which he didn't do. So they're basing this false claim about excommunication on another false claim. So what I've done is, even before they made this claim about the excommunication, weeks before this trial, I showed, here's where he's completely contradicted by the evidence. And so their current lie rests on a previous lie, but it's starting to be exposed. But again, I have some deeper questions. Honestly, I have much deeper questions. For me, the biggest issue is not that Vigano deflected and shifted the blame on Pope Francis. That's pretty bad. That's pretty horrible thing to do, especially given his culpability in that situation with McCarrick. The bigger thing to me is, how did nobody catch this in 4 years? That's what I want to know. Instead, what they were discussing when this report came out was stupid points like, well, was it a formal sanction or an informal sanction that was imposed on McCarrick back in 2006? Who cares? Irrelevant. Because you know what? Vigano didn't enforce it either way. So it doesn't really matter. Because either way, Vigano didn't enforce it. That should be the bigger headline there. Nuncio didn't enforce whatever you want to call it. And the bigger headline there is, even above that, is Nuncio didn't follow up with credible accusations about Cardinal McCarrick, but then said that it was Francis who sheltered McCarrick. That should be the big headline. Why isn't that the big headline? Either in church circles or the secular news? I don't know. So it raises some bigger questions for me. But again, now I'm noticing that they are relying on outdated misinformation that has already been debunked, and they're relying on that to promote more misinformation, and that is that Vigano is only being disciplined because he is a whistleblower. No, he's not. And that is certainly not why this is happening. So I had to share that little victory with y'all to show y'all, hey, you know what? We're making an impact. We're starting to set the record straight and getting the information out there. So thank y'all so much for supporting the show and making that possible. All right, hit the like button and hit the subscribe button if you want to support what I'm doing here, so that I can continue to do stuff like this and help make an impact on people and the information that they are aware of. Support me at patreon.com/reason and theology or reasonandtheology.locals.com. You'll get access to extra content and especially enable me to continue to do what I'm doing here. So I would greatly appreciate that support. All right, y'all. We'll see you soon. God bless. Hey friends, do you want others to discover why the Catholic Church is the church that Jesus established? And do you want to help people make sense of all the confusion in the Catholic Church today? Help contribute to this mission by supporting Reason and Theology at patreon.com/reason and theology. By doing so, you'll also get access to exclusive content for patrons only. Also, if you want to deepen your faith, there are free ebooks and even courses that you can sign up for by visiting reason.podia.com.